Okay, let's discuss this patient bed. Okay, so the idea is to have a patient bed that is inexpensive, that maybe can hold up to 500 pounds or more, maybe 1,000 pounds. Okay, see, my idea is that when I say design, because I don't know everything, let me tell you how I would approach it really as a team member. This is the way I approach anything. The first thing I need to do is design the structures. You need a materials person who helps you with designing the assembly frame. The assembly frame should be able to adjust both width and length, perhaps while the patient is even in it. Okay, so you get a person to help you to lay that out because you got to really pick what materials are going to be used to make this bed. And remember, something inexpensive. It doesn't have to be, but interlocking pieces, you can expand it, okay? Now, at the end point of the bed, it rotates. Okay, now, there's different ways to rotate it, but what happens is you need at this point to bring in the people who are specialists in bed sores. They've been working on beds and bed sores and compromised patients in ICU. See, because I was in county and I dealt with comatose patients on ventilators who are there perhaps for prolonged periods of time. Was very much in tune to bed sores because I was one part of what was looking and evaluating bed sores in my patients. So there's been a lot of advances, I think, in bed sore technology. So you got to bring the bed sore people in. You got to bring the bed sore people in and the people who deal with the disabled right from the beginning. Because I want the people who deal with the bed sores and the people who deal with the disabled to come in with me while we design the adjustable frame. Okay, the adjustable frame for the bed. So that can be assembled quickly and easy. In the simplest form, it's just a bed you can assemble that allows you to rock the patient up and down or maybe even left and right. I don't know. It may, in the simplest form, just go up and down. That's what we'll find out from the experts. Remember, it's who you get on the bus and who you get off the bus. You don't have to decide where the bus is going. That's why you get these people involved. Once I have the bed sore and the disability people involved with the bed frame, you're going to be bringing in more materials people. This is also to keep costs down. People are going to tell you the most affordable way. You may have to be innovative with materials on your design, okay? But a lot of this has been tested already by the bed sore people and the disability people and the wheelchair people. They know all this stuff already. You need to bring in the best of them. So you get the best of them in together, and they help me assemble on top of the frame, which should be rollable and fitting in the currently existing. See, the part of this is you'll roll right into currently existing setups. Nothing has to change. You're just changing the bed. Okay, and the bed can change into something that's ventilator. See, the questions I don't know really is when we do the patient's prone. See, I always have done stuff well anyway. Because they do that when they do back surgeries. The patient is prone. They do a bunch, depending on what they're doing, you're prone. So the issue is, what is the difference in the other mechanics, the other issues for body sores? There's experience on this. That needs to be reviewed. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. People know that. So I want to know what is the potential problems from positioning you prone and for how long. So now we got all those people involved on the frame. We got the materials people. Now, this is where it gets interesting too, because we're going to bring in software people so that this whole thing can be voice activated by the patient or the nursing staff, and that the machine can recognize the difference. So that if the patient asks for something, the machine can say, well, we're going to call the nurse and tell her what you asked for. But see, to me, I think that the bed could have a series of different straps that stretched across the frame, where the straps could have little pads on them or something, little balls of pad fibers or something, and that little motors could move the pads and tighten them to have adjusting tension and therefore pressure all along the bed. If you can imagine, if the bed was a series of 2-inch straps, that once you had that basic frame, that way if it breaks, you just get a new strap, And the tension is controlled by a little motor. The little motor has a servo that connects to the computer so that the computer can do a readout on the tension of every strap. And let's just say you have these 2-inch straps cheaply available, tension little motors cheaply available, and that the computer therefore is able to rotate the tension and therefore the tissue pressure. Now, this is the part I don't know. I need help from the engineers. I also want a series of sensors that are flat, disposable, almost like Band-Aids, that I think this is the way I want it. I think I want a series of sensors that are disposable like Band-Aids that we can paste all over the patient, front and back, to gather information. See, it all has to be an experiment to gather information simultaneously. So if I have a bunch of these circular whatever size sensors all over the patient, front and back, then I could conceivably gather data about pressure points relative to their position in space. Okay? I could also develop, so that way if they had straps in front and straps in back, I don't know. I have to have some way of the computer adjusting the tension and therefore the pressure along the straps, front and back, depending upon the shifting of the patient in space. And that also to be able to measure pressure. So if you had the pressure pads, they could actually be applied on the patient to areas that were more at risk. And that could also be plotted on the computer. Now, all of that could be assembled into the computer with the regular series of alarms, alerts, things that you would have. And also communicate these same alerts and alarms to the patient. Not so much that the patient does anything, but also to educate the patient about the repercussions of their position. In a lot of ways, I have this whole different concept of the patient being more involved. See, that starts at the very beginning. So I assume the patient wants to kind of know everything I want to know. So if they're conscious enough to understand this, I would be giving them this readout, okay? And then I would add in all the virtual AI components that therefore make it more comforting to the patient. Okay, so while they're on this bed, the bed could talk to them in a variety of ways while showing and displaying them information, entertainment, learning information, helping them to communicate with staff. Now, I think I posted on Facebook, where was that? The cost of the average bed. Okay, because now notice what I said. They said, I'm going to tell you what's happening right here. So I went and looked. So ICU beds typically cost between $25,000 to $30,000 a piece. And I've been in ICUs and I know what those beds are like. Okay? And medical surgical beds are $5,000 to $10,000 a piece. Now, I'm telling you, I'm sure that this design that I'm talking about can be made for way less than that and then reproduced on a mass scale. Now, another thing is you need a whole variety, a whole fleet of beds that are more or less complicated depending on the requirements. That's why I liked the basic frame that adjusts by adding components to go either adjustments lengthwise or width, that has bands, readily available bands, 2-inch bands that are then going to stretch across the bed or maybe sandwich. This is my base preliminary idea. I'm just starting because you may have to put something on this side of that. But let's just say you have 2-inch bands that could be on both sides of the patient. You might have the patient in between a sheet, but outside of that sheet is these bands that come down on the patient to a certain point that's controllable, okay? And then there are 2-inch bands controlled by metal servo motors that could be adjusted just the tension in the band. And that could all be computerized, okay? All right? And I think you could do that with the computer for okay, that's not going to cost us $10,000 to build. Okay? What's $10,000? Okay, the metal frame's not $10,000, and you use regular materials. You just want to find out what's cheap and strong and will last. The bands, those canvas bands is cheap as hell. That don't cost nothing. Even the little motors cheap as hell, don't cost nothing. So, and the servos that communicate with the computer don't cost nothing. The computer don't cost nothing. Okay, now we get to the materials. So the most expensive materials are probably something, the bedding or the mattressing. Well, see, I don't know you do that. What if front and back of the patient you had like a mattress pad, and then on top of that you had the bands? Okay, remember, I want some kind of a sensors on the patient to sense pressure. Again, that can be monitored on the same computer. The computer don't cost anything. What is the cost in this? That's why people, how you need to, no, I'm not trying to patent shit. I'm trying to talk about helping the world, okay? This is readily available knowledge. You bring the right people together and you make this kind of shit available to the world. You don't let somebody patent it. You let this be, I would do this open source, bring in everybody from around the world to work on it this way. And you can make it so it grows. The AI components are wonderful. The other thing, think about it. If this bed, which would allow you to reposition patients and ventilate them in a variety of positions, could be used for people at home for those things. Now, here's where I think it could also be used for research, because I have this other thing. What if people actually breathe better in different positions? Remember, I did ventilators for babies and children. So they do breathe better in different positions. There's mechanical reasons why, but it depends what else is going on with them. Like if they have abdominal surgery, whether or not they have different kinds of lung disease, or whether or not there's any lung disease at all. Maybe no lung disease, it's just head trauma. It makes a difference. The machine can gather data. What if, as we rotated the patients in different positions, we were able to actually develop a best positioning kind of an algorithm, where we actually were able to let the computer monitor the patient, log the nursing staff. It would just basically gather data and then at some point present to the practitioner a suggestion of which patterns, which positions seem to benefit the patient most, both based on scientific data and monitoring data and by the patient's reported comfort zone. Okay? This is why it excites me, okay? So that's why I'm talking about the bed. I am talking about the bed because I am a unique geek techie person. But the materials people and all of them are out there. We need to design this bed. It needs to be used all over the world to ventilate patient. Now, back to my point. That means if I have an obese patient who previously, when I laid them on their back, ventilating them was like having a 40-pound 4-year-old sitting on their chest while I'm trying to breathe for them. Now I can reposition them in a way, position, so that they are now are not working against gravity. What if we could put them in whatever position we want? See, that's my thing. Whatever position we want. What if we could reposition the patient that way? You see what I'm saying? So I'm out there speaking to all you geek scientists. I hope you wonderful, gifted people know how to take this and run. I'll go around suggesting it to people and continue on my journey. Peace and blessings.